Hi, everyone. It's such a pleasure to be here and to be engaging with you guys. I've been getting feedback about this new exploration into talking about food and nutrition, which happen to be huge, huge passions of mine, but don't come up so much in my courses. And thank God, one of the students in my course actually asked if I could talk about the eating patterns in our home. And it appears some people are actually listening to what I have to say and choosing to engage in different types of eating, which is really exciting to hear. So first of all, if you have any questions, please go ahead and put them in the comments. And I hope to continue to engage with all of you here in the Vitality Show on Thursdays, talking about food and nutrition and sharing recipes. I've already been asked if I could share more specific recipes, and I'm going to be really honest with you. Not really. I'm not such a great measurements person, and I'm not so great at following recipes. I really am that type of person who says a pinch of this and a little bit of that, and I just kind of hodgepodge. And I want to give a shout out to my son, R.A. Lev, who's probably going to be embarrassed that I'm doing this, but I'm super duper grateful. I'm sitting here and doing this live because he has spent the past couple hours preparing an incredible plant-based meal for all of us to eat. And it's a good reflection of how we eat in this household. And I'm going to go into detail about that when I get to the dinner portion of my discourse for today. So people are asking, like, okay, what is it that I actually eat? So I'm going to share. First off, our focus is always on whatever we put in our mouths is here to nourish our mind, body, and soul. And I didn't have that language or that understanding until a friend of mine who lives in my neighborhood asked me if I would come over. This was, I don't know, like 7 years ago, something like that. If I would come over and help her figure out her family's food situation. And we sat down and she said she's really frustrated because her kids end up in their rush going to school eating like potato chips or boxed cereal or things like that in a little baggie, and that's kind of what they end up eating for breakfast, and she doesn't feel particularly good about it. So I asked her, what's her goal? And she said, what do you mean, what's my goal? I said, well, what is your goal in regards to your children's food or their diet? And she thought about it and she said, well, I just want them to have something in their belly. I said, fantastic, you've hit your goal. Everything's great. What's the problem? And she looked at me and she's like, what do you mean, what's the problem? Like, they're not eating healthy food. And I replied to her, yes, but that's not in your goal. Your kids are actually hitting your goal. Your family is reflecting your values. And that's when it occurred to her that maybe there was a challenge with her goal. And she turned to me and said, what's your goal? And I thought about it and I said that everything that goes into my mouth and my son's mouth and my husband's mouth, that everything that goes into our mouths should nourish our mind, body, and soul. And she said, so the potato chips are never even a consideration. I said, no, they're not. And that changed everything for her. That didn't necessarily mean that everything in her household changed, but it changed her perspective, because she realized that having certain goals is going to lead to certain outcomes. So that's the first thing I want to put forward to you, that if you want to, live without diabetes or heart issues or blood pressure issues or cancer or so many of the autoimmune diseases that are coming up, so you want to really clarify what's your goal. Is your goal not to have these diseases, or is your goal to manage them with medication? Is your goal to lose weight? Is your goal to just eat what tastes good and not have to be in the kitchen? So all of these different goals are going to really change the relationship that you have with food and nutrition. And it could be that your goals end up aligning with mine, and it could be that they really don't, in which case I would say maybe skip out on this show, on this Thursday part of my Vitality Hub community, because this is where I'm going to be talking on Thursdays. I'm going to be talking about food. And it could be that your values are not to nourish your mind, body, and soul. Maybe disease prevention and longevity isn't that important to you. You'd rather live a shorter life and just relish in, the beer and the potato chips and the pizza and your football. And like, that makes you so happy and it brings you so much joy. And that's really what you want your life to look like. And if that's true for you, and I'm really not being sarcastic or pedantic at all, I really mean this. If that's true for you, so tuning into this, Thursday episode thing might not be a perfect fit. But if you're really looking to experience a lot of vitality, have a healthier, leaner body, prevent a lot of the diseases that are really causing a lot of destruction in so many people's lives. So you might want to tune in because I've got some cool information that I'd love to share. So what do the Masons eat on a given day? Okay, so we like to start our day with fruit. For multiple reasons. First of all, we love fruit. Fruit tastes really good. It's full of sugar, and we need sugar to live. Our brains function mostly on sugar, and it just tastes so good. And thank God we live in the land of Israel where we've got a plethora of fruits throughout the year. Obviously, different fruits in different seasons, but we've got so much fruit available literally every month of the year. So it's really fun for us to be able to enjoy that at the beginning of the day. One of the reasons we engage with fruit at the beginning of the day is because fruit digests very quickly. And so we want to give it an empty stomach to work with so that it can just move through the body in as efficient way as possible. The other reason is that fruit is very rich in water. And after sleeping for 8 hours, we usually have a cup of water in the morning. But in the winter, I'll usually have an herbal tea also. But water doesn't, from the tap, doesn't give you the kind of rich, complex hydration that fruit can give you, because fruit is chock full of minerals also, and vitamins and phytonutrients, and that's all wrapped up in the over 90% water that's comprised in your fruit. So it's kind of nice to be able to get all of that hydration. The other reason is that fruit helps you go to the potty. I'm going to be really blunt about that. Fruit is chock full of the fiber and the sugar that helps things move. The fruits that are particularly good for moving things are in the melon family. So papayas, watermelons, cantaloupes, all those kind of melony guys. So if you struggle with going to the bathroom in the morning, those are really helpful. So we love to start our day with fruit, and really any fruit will do. A lot of times we'll make fruit smoothies, in which case we'll throw in greens. I like to put in barley grass powder, and also ashwagandha, which is a medicinal root vegetable that's an adaptogen. We can talk about adaptogens at some other point in time, but it's really good for you. I'll put in, greens or spinach or kale or something like that into the smoothies as much as my son can, not notice. That's kind of the goal, right? So I'll put some berries in that make it red, and somehow the red and the green together make it slightly less red, but he doesn't notice. So that's kind of the goal. But for my husband and myself, we'll make our smoothies like really hearty green, and we're happy to have all those greens. Sometimes we start our day with a green juice. So we'll have celery, cucumber, fresh herbs, and usually some apples to sweeten the deal, or beets or carrots to sweeten the deal. And that was a habit of mine for a really long time. At the moment, not juicing so much, but want to get back on the bandwagon. So that's kind of how we start our day. If I start my day with a really water-rich fruit that doesn't have a lot of calories, like watermelon, so I'm going to get hungry 2 hours later. But if I start my day with a really calorie-dense fruit like mango or persimmon or banana, so I can usually just have that for breakfast and I'm good. So today for breakfast, I ate 1.5 mangoes. That was my breakfast, and I was good and ready to go. And when lunchtime came at 1 o'clock, I was hungry, but I wasn't starving. So what did we have for lunch? So our lunches and our dinners look very, very similar. So I'm just going to talk about them as though they're one meal. So usually about a third to half our plate, depending on which member of the family. I'm definitely in the half category. My men are less so. I'm obsessed with salad. Dave likes to have a lot of salad also, but less than I do, and definitely less closer to the end of the day because it's so water rich. kind of makes you pee a lot. And he doesn't like to pee a lot at the end of the day. So that's us. Too much information, Chana. Okay, great. So back to the salad. So salad is usually ends up being about half our plate, which means that you're getting tons of roughage, tons of water, a lot of fiber. And I like to put in a lot of fresh herbs into my salad, definitely some greens, and usually shredded carrot or cucumber. Lately, I've been buying endives. I love endives. They're like my new best friends, and I put those in the salad. I love putting sprouts in salad. They're chock full of packed nutrition. So I'll make a mixed salad like that. I'll tell you about my salad dressing in a minute. What's great about salad is it happens to be my favorite food. And if it's not your favorite food, so slowly ease into it and get yourself used to more and more salady vegetables and play around with different dressings. One of the things that's so great about salad is that it's really bulky, but very calorie poor, okay? So you're eating a lot of food and it's gonna fill you up, but in a given salad, like I'll eat at lunch about this much salad, and there's probably like 100 calories in the vegetables, and then probably another 100 to 200 calories in my dressing, okay? Maybe there's 200 calories in the vegetables. It's not that many calories. We're talking about like 300 to 400 calories. And why am I mentioning calories? Because there is somewhat of, it's not perfect, but there is somewhat of a correlation between calorie intake and how much you weigh, right? So when you have like this much bulk, that's taking up most of your stomach, and that's just, and it's just water. So it tastes really good and you're getting tons of nutrients, but you're not getting that many calories, as opposed to say a burger. So a burger is very calorie dense because you have so much fat in there and you have so much protein in there. And it's so packed and there's not that much water. They cook the water out of the burger. So it's so calorie dense that with not that many bites, you're getting a ton of calories. So it's just easier to get fat that way. So it helps to make a love affair with salad and learn to make lots of different salads. One of the things that's great to put in salads is cruciferous vegetables. You can eat them raw or you can eat them cooked. Cruciferous vegetables, otherwise known as the brassica family, cabbage, collard greens, Brussels sprouts, kale, broccoli, cauliflower, all of those guys have compounds called sulforaphanes that are really, really, really crazy good for you and kill cancer like nobody's business. So if you can get those, any one of those into your salads or cooked into your diet at least once a day, that's huge. Dr. Michael Greger says that the biggest bang for your buck as far as antioxidant per penny actually comes from red or purple cabbage. Purple cabbage is dirt cheap in most parts of the world, and it's chock full of antioxidants, and it's also really fiber dense. So it's just really filling. And you want to make sure you chew it really well, and it might give you a little bit of gas, and that's okay. But you're just getting so many antioxidants and such a big punch for something that's really, really cheap. Okay, so that's the salad part. As far as salad dressing, so I'll tell you a typical salad dressing that I make. I take Chana, otherwise known as tahini, or you can use any other nut butter, as long as the nut butter doesn't have like margarine in it, which most American peanut butters do. So just make sure it's just like nuts, ideally raw nuts. Okay, so I use tahina, mustard, a little bit of honey or maple syrup or date honey or a fresh date, and fresh herbs and apple cider vinegar or lemon juice and or any other kind of vinegar. And that's it. Mix it all up. If you want to put it in the blender, great. If you want to put some green onion into it, that's really nice. Green onion gives a really nice punch. If you want to crush fresh garlic into it, that gives you an incredible antioxidant punch. My skin doesn't seem to like garlic so much, but for most people, it's really, really good for you. You can also make a salad dressing with ginger. This is a really good one. Take tahina, or actually a nut butter would be really good for this, like an almond butter or a peanut butter, and orange juice, lemon juice, green onions, a little piece of of ginger, and You could even add like a dash of curry powder. If you know what tamarind paste is and you know how to get some, that would be a good thing to add. You could add a date into that, blend it all together, and you kind of get like a Thai flavored dressing. It's really good and creamy and delicious. So notice I'm not mentioning oil because I don't cook with it. One of the biggest things you could do to improve your health is to significantly reduce the amount of fat that you take into your diet. Fat is just hard to process. So getting rid of the oils, very helpful. And reducing the amount of fat intake that you get. If you cut animal products out of your diet, that's just going to cut most of the fat you even have available. But you might want to like be snacking on nuts and seeds and stuff like that. Have some. Don't go crazy. Keep it minimal. Fantastic. Next. Okay. So what else do we put on our plate? So usually at every main meal, we have some sort of legume, which is a fancy word for beans, right? And beans includes soybeans and black beans and chickpeas and lentils and sugar snap peas and any other peas and lima beans, any of those things. Those guys are full of fiber, full of protein, chock full of vitamins and minerals, especially minerals that you really need. So have lots of different ones at different times because they're just fun to play around with. So usually we'll have a dish that has beans in it and lots of other things as well. Like I'll put my son, for example, my amazing son just made a chickpea dish that has zucchini and carrot and little pieces of date and raisin. I don't know what else he put in it. Maybe onion, maybe garlic. I don't know exactly what he put in there. And he cooked that all up and added some chickpeas and also some cinnamon and clove and other kind of spices like that to kind of give it a bit of like a sweet Moroccan-y kind of taste. And we're going to have that with rice. He made rice. So we're going to have that with rice, and I'm going to make a salad, and that's going to be our dinner. So that's really typical for us. We'll have a bean dish that also has vegetables. Sometimes we'll make a vegetable dish without any beans, but I like to put beans into most of our meals. That could include making tofu. And then usually we'll have a whole grain, rice, quinoa, kasha, millet, buckwheat, you name it. I'm kind of blanking out on whole grains. Once in a while, we'll make pasta, not very often because it's just processed and it's not as good for you, but it's fun to eat. So we make it sometimes, in which case I'll make a ton of vegetables. I'll saute mushrooms and onions with greens and maybe put a little bit of nut butter in it to make a creamy sauce, or I'll put coconut milk into it to make a creamy sauce and put that with the pasta, and we'll have a really big salad. Something we had as a family last night for dinner was a vegan pizza. So how on earth did we make pizza? So we make sourdough bread. I have actually an episode in my YouTube channel teaching people how to make sourdough bread. You just have to get a hold of Sourdough Starter. If you're here in Jerusalem, I'm happy to give it away. If you're not, so you're going to have to figure out how you're going to get some starter, but then you can make sourdough bread. And what you can do with sourdough is lots of different things. You can make pancakes, and you can make pizza, and you can make focaccia, and you can make breads. You can do lots of different things once you have a starter. So Dave last night or yesterday afternoon, he made the pizza dough and laid it out to rise. And then Arilev and I did pretty much everything else. So we made a homemade marinara sauce. So in the blender or the food processor, I threw tomatoes and onions and usually garlic, but I didn't have any garlic left, so didn't put it garlic this time. And just let it zhuzh a little bit and then cook it on low for a long time until it cooks down. No oil necessary. Till it cooks down, starts getting really sweet. We like to cook our marinara sauce with red wine, and we just like the taste. It tastes really good. All the alcohol goes, and that's the part of the wine that's not good for you. So a lot of the grape nutrients that are left are still there. And tons of fresh herbs from our herb garden. So put basil and oregano and marjoram and thyme and rosemary and chopped those up and threw them into the tomato sauce. And so that was really nice. So we made a marinara sauce. Arilev made a cheese. So there's tons of vegan cheese recipes online. His was made out of cashews and water and vinegar and nutritional yeast and tapioca starch. and we put it in the blender at a really intense speed, and you end up with this creamy stuff that then he cooked on the stove until it got firm, and we can grate it, and that becomes our cheese. It doesn't melt exactly like mozzarella. We'll be really honest with you, it doesn't, but it still has a cheesy flavor, and it just kind of adds a little creaminess to our dish. And then on top of the cheese, we pack on the vegetables. We're really crazy about our vegetables. So we had a whole layer of mushrooms, and for those who like peppers, and there were olives and onions, and like the pizza gets really, really high, and we bake it like that. So we made one pizza, and then we also made a calzone. So the stuffing that we like for calzone is a stuffing recipe I made a long time ago. We haven't changed it all that much. Saute a ton of onions. So how do I do that? Chop up onions, add water to the pot, put the pot, cover the pot and put it on low, and go do something else. Leave it on low for a long time. Once in a while, check and make sure that the water hasn't totally boiled out, because it will burn. But as long as there's some water in there, it's just going to keep cooking. And you might be like, wait, how do you do that without oil? First of all, without oil, you don't have to keep doing this whole moving stuff around stuff. You could go do something else. It's much, much, much easier. The other thing is that the onions are still going to get sweet. They won't get as brown because the oil's not burning and becoming rancid and toxic on you, but they'll really get sweet. And so once the onions start getting transparent or are transparent, so I threw in like, how much? This much, which shrinks to nothing, Swiss chard, chopped up Swiss chard, threw it into the pot with a little bit of almond cream, which we have here in Israel, which is kind of like tahini, but it's made out of almonds and it's raw, just to make it a little bit creamy. There's so in those greens, there's a lot of fat-soluble vitamins that need a little bit of fat to help be digested in the body. So just putting a little bit of cream just makes it nice. And that goes into the calzone, and then we top the calzone with chunky salt, like Mediterranean sea salt, and fresh rosemary, and they both went in the oven, and then we made huge salads, and that was our dinner. And we have that usually like once a week. We'll do like a family pizza night, and sometimes we'll do a movie together with it. So that's to give you an idea. So something that I notice is that if I have a really light breakfast, I'll probably want, in between breakfast and lunch, I'll probably want a snack, and that's usually going to be fruit. In between lunch and dinner, I also notice that I can't last all the way till dinner. I'll usually want to have a fruit. And so in this time of year, that's going to be mango. I love mango. And in Israel, we get mango for like about 6 months of the year. So it's amazing. But sometimes we want to have something a little bit heartier, particularly my son, who's 15 and growing like crazy, like bamboo. So he really likes to have calorie-dense, starchy foods that are going to give him more sustained energy than just a mango. So we make granola bars. And I'm going to share with you how we make the granola bars. And that's sort of our desserty snack. So you take whole oats, and I think it's like 3 cups of whole oats, 2 cups of dates, half a cup of nut butter, but you could put way less than that if you want. Maybe like a quarter cup of water, or half a cup of water. I can't remember, something like that. And then you can put vanilla, cinnamon, nutmeg to taste. And if you want, you could put like pecans into it. So what we do is we take the dates and the water and put them in the blender or the food processor. It's better in the food processor, or you could do this all by hand. You don't need to use a machine at all. But if you have a food processor, it's going to save you a lot of time. You put the dates in there with the water, and it'll chop the dates up into this mush. You throw that mush with the oats into a bowl. Otherwise, just put the dates into the bowl. If you can soak the dates in the water for a while you're going and doing something else, that also helps so that you don't have to work the dates as much. And then you work everything with the nut butter and whatever liquid you have. Just keep working it until you end up with a very uniformed pasty thing. And then you can add pecans. You know, if you feel like you want to have chocolate in there, you can add some chocolate in there. It's not the greatest thing for you, but whatever. You can throw pecans in there. You can throw any nut in there that you want, or seeds if you want. Not necessary at all, but it's just kind of like added stuff that you can do to give your own unique flavor to whatever it is you're making. You could put shredded coconut in there, whatever it is. And then you lay it all in one layer on parchment paper and bake it at 350 for about, which is 180 Celsius, for about 20 to 30 minutes, something like that. And then you can cut it into granola bars. Freezes really, really well. And it's just a great snack. And notice how we've just so come to associate like these sweet things as being not good for us. But notice how there's no sugar in this. There's no oil in this. You can actually eat it raw and never bother with the baking part. My son likes to eat like a raw chunk whenever we make it. He takes this up to boarding school when school is actually functioning in my country, which it isn't right now. He takes it up with him, and that's what he has as like snacks between meals. So he's getting, really rich calories. He's getting good food. It's wholesome. It's going to keep him going to the bathroom. It's going to keep the body flowing, and it's going to give him the nutrients that he needs to get through the day, particularly because he's really into working out and weightlifting and building muscle. And he needs to get like the calories that he needs to move through that day and the protein that he needs to move through that day. And so plant-based protein is fantastic because it gives you what you need to build muscle without giving you the inflammation that animal products cause. So animal products cause inflammation, which means that it's so much more difficult for muscles to recover from weightlifting. So he's experiencing really fast recovery times, and he just notices how quickly he's able to build muscle and build ability and things like that. So, okay, how do I saute without using oil? Thank you. I think that's Karen Grafstein, whoever that is. How do I saute without using oil? So I don't really saute. I just put a little bit of water in the pot, and I keep things on low, and then I cover it and I go do something else. You don't need to do this whole moving around thing. But if you want to, if you happen to have like a lot of layers of veggies and you want to get them moving around so the top stuff isn't like totally raw while the bottom stuff's getting overcooked. So you just keep moving it around, but you don't need oil. When you're used to using oil, you think you have to use it, and that definitely fits my bill. Like I used to believe that like there's no way to cook without oil, and I used to go through a liter of oil in my house. Every week. Sorry, I forgot that part. A liter a week. That's a lot of oil. And I just don't use it anymore. My husband uses a little bit of olive oil in bread because he's just used to it for baking. But all of the really fancy organic olive oil that we ordered from a farm a year ago, we still have a ton of it left. It's probably going to last us a whole other year. We use it for lighting our Sabbath candles, believe it or not. That's what we use our oil for, because we light fresh oil Sabbath candles, and our Hanukkah candles are also oil. But there's so many videos out there explaining how to cook with that oil, and people will show you, and you'll find that it's so easy to do, and you'll be shocked at how you don't need to have this in your diet. So for us, that saved us $10 to $15 a week in oil purchase, because the oil wasn't adding any nutrition for us. It wasn't filling us up. It was just making everything super greasy and much harder to wash. It's also saving us money in soap, in case you're like curious, what about the expense of everything? So I want to share one last thing about beans that I happen to love, that I figured this out, how to explain to people why eating plant-based is so much cheaper than eating animal-based. And this is why. When you buy, and I might have mentioned this in the last video, and that's okay. In Israel, chicken costs about 25 shekels a kilo. So that's like, somebody help me out here, $2 to $3 a pound, okay? So let's say you buy $3 a pound, $2 a pound. Let's make it as cheap as possible. You buy for $2 a pound, you buy a chicken, okay? Then you cook the chicken. When you cook that chicken, you end up with about half as much chicken as you started with. Because remember, you're paying for weight of bones, and also chicken is almost 90% water, just like you are. And a lot of that water is getting cooked out of the chicken. So, and water's heavy. So you're losing a lot of the weight of the chicken just by cooking it. So you end up with half as much chicken. So now we're talking about for a pound of chicken, it's no longer $2, it's $4, because to get a pound of chicken that you can actually eat after it's cooked, you have to cook twice as much chicken. Okay, so now we're talking about $4 a pound for chicken. Meanwhile, in the United States, if you want to buy beans, you can easily buy beans for less than $1 a pound. But let's say it costs $1 a pound to buy lentils, right? You buy a bag of lentils for 99 cents at the supermarket. Then what do? You got to soak the lentils. You could cook them straight, but it's going to give you a lot of gas and it's not going to be as nutritious. So ideally, you got to soak them lentils, right? So you put the lentils in water overnight, and in the morning, the lentils will have doubled to tripled in size. And because they're now full of water, they're a lot heavier. So that 1 pound of lentils is now about 3 pounds of lentils. So you paid $1 for the original dry pound, but the cooked pound, right? How they are once they're fully soaked is about how they're going to be when they're fully cooked. It's not that big of a difference as far as weight. So now that cooked pound is going to cost you about 33 cents, because to get a cooked pound of lentils, you only need 1/3 of a cup of uncooked lentils. So it's 33 cents versus $4, okay? And it's not like the meat is going to be more filling than the lentils per weight. Lentils are filling, they're hearty and they're filling. And because beef is so challenging for the human body to digest, it's going to make you more tired, whereas the lentils are going to give you more energy. $4, 33 cents. If somebody's got better math, you're welcome to put in there. Okay, so someone else put, I have found that a plant-based diet, even if you buy organic, is way cheaper than an animal-based diet, as long as you don't buy processed stuff, which is super expensive. So thank you, Facebook user. You're absolutely correct. I found the exact same thing to be true. Unless you're buying processed food, like, you know, the fake meat things and the fake hot dogs and things like that, it's definitely a lot cheaper. So somebody, clearly a Colombian, do I have a healthy version of arepas? You know what? I haven't created a healthy version of arepas. And the reason is that I don't have access to non-GMO cornmeal. So corn is, genetically modified corn is a problem. I really don't understand the genetics of the genetic modification, so I can't even comment on the genetics. The purpose of modifying corn and soy is not because you get some like better gene situation. It's so that the seeds are Roundup ready, okay? So that means you could take a genetically modified corn seed, put it in the ground, and you'll get corn. And if you spray Roundup, if you spray glyphosate onto that corn, every other plant around it will die. All the microbes in the soil will die. All the earthworms will die, but that corn will stay alive. And that corn is now covered in Roundup. And that Roundup, Monsanto, which produces Roundup, just lost a whole bunch of lawsuits of people who got cancer because they were farmers and got exposed to tremendous amounts of Roundup. It's known to eat into the gut lining of the human gut, and in some cases cause diseases such as Crohn's and other autoimmune diseases. So it's something I stay very, very far away from. And getting non-GMO cornmeal is really difficult, particularly here in Israel. So I just haven't even bothered. Okay. Oh, thanks, Panina Taylor. Happy to see you. And so I think that's it for today. Please keep sending me questions about what you guys want to hear about and learn about. And I look forward to sharing more about my food journey with all of you. In the meantime, in honor of the Jewish New Year, I send you so many blessings for a year of health and vibrancy and joy and curiosity and so many yummy tastes in your palate. Take care.